and then I bought kombucha because I was curious.
You like
my
kombucha?
God.
I love kombucha.
Starlight, star bright.
Puss in Boots?
If it isn't Puss in Boots himself.
I am Puss in Boots, loved by one
You
and
are down to
all.
your last life.
Wishing
The
star.
wishing star. It does
What
exist.
wish can do all that, Goldie?
That's my wish.
What is it, eh? What's your just
You're still
right?
running. Still the same old Puss in Boots.
Death is after me.
I am afraid.
Here we go.
Puss in Boots: The Last Wish has been one of the most talked about movies in recent memory, and it's easy to see why. Not only has it officially, unironically revived the Shrek franchise after 11 entire years, not counting the Netflix film or this series that apparently exists, but it seems to have shook new ground for animated family films. Just by watching one clip of this movie, you can see how every frame looks like a beautiful painting, and it gets more experimental with the speed lines and lower frame rate action scenes, but it's far more than just the stylized animation that makes this movie so spectacular. My initial review of Puss in Boots 2 skyrocketed in the algorithm, gaining me over 200 subscribers and currently sitting at 69,000 views, easily making it my most viewed video on my channel. It seems people really love to talk about this movie, and rightfully so, especially with how bland and oversaturated the cinemas are nowadays. Every big CGI blockbuster just gets more and more bland and forgettable. Animated family movies especially have just stagnated over the past few decades. With all of this in mind, it's no wonder so many people are talking about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, as it feels like a much-needed breath of fresh air and one of the best animated films of the past decade. While many people have made their own videos on it, they are all either first impressions, general reviews, or a short analysis on like one specific thing. Also, outrage bait. But I haven't seen anything too in-depth on this movie as a whole yet. It's understandable, it's only been out for a little over a month at the time of writing this, and who knows, maybe what I just said will be very outdated by the time this video is uploaded and you can all point and laugh and call me a tree-hugging liberal, but regardless, I'm still gonna go hyper-anal on this movie. That was not the best way to phrase that. Also, I wanted to correct myself on a few things I said in my original video. I will be going scene by scene, discussing in detail every aspect of what makes this film so great. The writing, the characters, the animation, the comedy, the score, the themes and tone. A lot of this is part of the writing, but you get it. This will easily be my biggest project to date, and we're gonna be here for a while. Spoilers ahead, so please do yourself a favor and watch the movie first and then come back. Even if you've seen it, watch it again, right now. Grab your cup of leche and have a seat at the bar. Mi chiamo Valentino, and I'm here to explain why Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is just fucking right. The film opens up with
Starlight, star bright.
narration. Ding! I'm just kidding. Sorry, this is a good opening. Not only is it a good bit of exposition for what the film's plot will be about, but it's also just a beautiful spectacle that instantly hooks the audience in this painting-esque animation style. Everything just looks so crisp and clean. Dude, by the time I received the Blu-ray of this film, I actually nutted. The blending of 2D and 3D animation is a pretty new trend, relatively speaking, among animation. I think Spider-Verse was the first to really popularize it and show that it could be successful, but in this movie, I kinda like it more. The bright and vibrant colors just explode in your mind, as it's not something we typically see from 3D animation, especially DreamWorks films. It honestly reminds me of something out of a Disney Renaissance movie, in terms of just how vibrant and colorful it is, which nicely brings me to my next point. This is going to be a long segue, but it'll be worth it, I promise. Let's go back to 2001 for a second. No more 20th century, no more technological restrictions in animation, and no more world trade. But most importantly, cinemas were dominated by Disney's beautiful streak of gorgeous movies that, in my opinion, firmly cemented the best of the best reputation they have garnered and foreshadowed the darkness that was to come. The point is, the world had gotten used to 2D family films with very optimistic messaging, pretty and marketable character designs, original scores in the form of musical theater, and very whimsical tones overall. Then came Shrek, and life as we knew it changed. Shrek shows up and literally wipes his ass with these stories. We get an ugly, disgusting ogre that bathes in mud and farts in water, an annoying as hell talking donkey, fucking Smash Mouth, and an almost crass, foul sense of humor, while still having
Layers!
It shook the status quo for family films, and along with the cancerous production of Emperor's New Groove, promptly ended the Disney Renaissance. Also, by the way, I am in no way trashing on these Disney films. A few of them, such as The Lion King, are ranked as some of my favorite movies ever. No, the other one. While I despise Disney as a corporate post-capitalist tumor on society, actively and consistently restricting art and suing parents who put Lightning McQueen on their dead child's gravestone, as a critic, it's important to separate art from the artist and judge it by its own merits. Regardless, Shrek's crude style that broke the mold at the time had carried over into the sequels as well, including the bad one, and cemented itself in the franchise and would have a trickle effect on most DreamWorks films following. All but one. Puss in Boots opens with a far less tongue-in-cheek sequence, derivative of old westerns, and delivers on a fun bit of action and comedy in the mix. It reminds me of something like an MCU film, as well as a bit of expository narration introducing the character. Sound familiar? Okay, it took us a while to get there, but we did it. Good job. Many people praise Puss in Boots 2 for several reasons, and rightfully so. Why else do you think this video is a billion minutes long? But what a lot of people failed to mention was how true to the original it stayed. It probably could have just done its own thing and retconned Puss's entire journey and no one would care. I mean, it's been 11 years for crying out loud. The filmmakers going out of their way to include aspects from the first Puss in Boots film feels incredibly respectful and heartfelt to me. It's like a message to those who loved it and went, hey, we ain't forgotten about you, come join in on the fun. Even speaking as someone who, didn't like the first film, like, at all, I'll always appreciate the consistency from film to film. You're thinking by now, oh geez, get on with it already, we get it. No. Okay, fine. Beautiful opening, we're ready to dive right into this juicy oil painting. And boy, do I mean juicy.
Showtime.
Hooray! It's time for the moment you've been waiting for! Welcome to my fiesta!
Let's try and put this into words. Picture yourself as a kid. It was a school day, one of those really shitty school days where you were just miserable all day. I mean, it was awful. The kids were bullying you, the teachers wouldn't get off your ass, it sucked, and you just wanted to go home. You finally arrive at the comfort and safety of your house, and you smell something. Something that your brain instantly recognizes as a good sign. Your mom is cooking something fucking yummy in the kitchen, and your mood brightens in the blink of an eye. You wait for what seems like forever, salivating at whatever she's making, until finally you're sat down and you can enjoy a fresh, home-cooked meal in the safety of your own home. I never had this experience, as I never felt safe in my own home, but let's not get into that. The year of pretty mediocre to shit animated films was The Bad Day. That opening scene was the smell of the food in your house, and this scene is the first bite. Just the life displayed in the colors and the animation and how fluently the characters move, it's beautiful. And then we finally, after 11 years, get a look at the fucking gato himself. I don't want to bash his model from the older films, but man, I have never seen a 3D animated anthropomorphic orange tabby so lifelike and full of personality in just his model. His eyes are more distinct, and while cute, aren't over the top, and his hat is now like 3 times as long. It's comically large, but I like how stylized it is now. This one look says it all. He looks amazing. I never thought I'd be raving over the glow-up of Puss in Boots in 2023, but I am, and y'all are raving with me. And on top of that, this man plays a song, and it's a banger. Once again, this ain't something to be expected from the Shrek franchise. Most of them had montages accompanied with pop culture music, as well as their own non-diegetic scores, and that worked wonderfully for them. The first Puss in Boots had these weird scenes where there was almost music, but it kind of wasn't music, and it was a real Tarzan moment. This is new, and I'm all here for it. Before I talk about the song itself, let's talk about the visuals accompanying the song. Look at all this goofiness going on. Puss dances with a chicken, plays five-finger fillet with this random dude's hand while using his sword as a pogo stick, spins around a bunch, fucking horse. As expected at this point, you ain't gonna hear me shut up about it yet. The animation is nothing short of gorgeous. There is something so satisfying about how that milk pours out of the barrels here, and the way the fire looks makes me want to dance in it myself. It's no wonder these folks are having such a good time. On to the song itself. We get a pretty catchy one. At this point, Antonio Banderas is in his 60s, but his singing, as well as his performance that we will talk about, remains stellar as always with this man. Though I should know that you can hear the auto-tune during the chorus. Now folks, I've got a confession. I am not very smart. Well, I am, but I'm not very knowledgeable in music in general. So apologies for not being able to put my thoughts into words very well about this song, as I don't know the correct terms and phrases. What I will do is mention that I added it to my main Spotify playlist, as well as my workout playlist. I listen to Fearless Hero while working out, unironically, and I have no shame in that. It's just so much fun. Accompanying the classic Spanish Western style we've come to expect from a Puss in Boots song, the lyrics of both Puss and the background singers are written quite well, as not only is it fun and catchy, but there is some real clever foreshadowing to the story.
Puss in Boots is never afraid.
God, it's so refreshing to see a family film include foreshadowing that's actually subtle and nuanced, instead of just beating you over the head with it because
he's a kid. Kids are stupid.
the governor of Del Mar, the town they're currently in, forgot to add that, crashes the party and the song continues to play as Puss in Boots fights his guards. I love these two shots of Puss lighting the match and setting off the fireworks, as not only do they look beautiful, but they also showcase Puss's recklessness. When the sleeping giant awakens, the action gets turned up to 11. After a super satisfying tracking shot of Puss running across the building, he soars into battle, and here is when the animation gets even more stylistic. The previous DreamWorks film Bad Guys was praised for having a more unique animation style derivative of anime and movies like Spider-Verse. Honestly, while I did like that movie, or didn't, I don't know, it's complicated. I didn't see too much of this distinction that warranted the praise. It was more of the character designs and backgrounds that stuck out than the animation itself, you know? With this movie though, it's absolutely warranted. You get the cheesy speed lines, or whatever they're called, that you see in anime, but more importantly, the frame rate drops significantly. Now, if you're a gamer, you're probably throwing a tantrum at the thought of lower FPS. But from an animation perspective, lower frame rates can make the action feel more impactful and fast-paced, as the characters are moving more frantically frame by frame. That's the most dumbed-down Cro-Magnon way of explaining it, but a lot of anime do this by default, and the mainstream animated films are starting to catch on. It kind of gives that stop-motion-esque impact to the sequences that make them feel so much more smoother and more satisfying to watch, despite the lower frame rates. It's hard to put into words for me, as I know very little about the technicalities of animation. I did complain about low frame rates in my Gamera Rebirth video, but like I said, for the action-y kaiju stuff, it's not an issue. It was the human characters where everything looked so bad. Anyway, Spanish Splinter!
Spanish Splinter!
Again, this fight scene shows just how arrogant Puss is and how little he values his lives. Dude looks so relaxed while traveling through like 5 rooms, only to get back up and continue fighting. While it's entertaining to watch, it gives clear foresight as to how, hey, who's this weird coyote looking guy? That's weird, huh? I don't know what that's about. Anyways, as Puss gets closer to the giant, the score soars into this beautiful triumphant theme. And when he gets flipped, he just spins around having the time of his life. Listen to that laugh. Look at how happy he is. You can't help but just laugh along with him. So our main cat frees the captured people, slays the giant, and lands gracefully on his feet, where he could say his farewells and march off. But someone just had to play one more round. We've established the tone, animation, score, and our main protagonist. Let's get with the plot, shall we? Puss wakes up naked in a doctor's office, where we get probably my favorite side character in the film. I use the term side character pretty conservatively, as there's other characters in this movie that could be considered side characters, but I find them too important to the movie as a whole to call them that. Sorry if it's different from your definition, I don't care. Enter the village doctor, also the village barber, veterinarian, dentist, and witch finder.
Let's go practice medicine.
I love this character. Everything about him is just really funny, mostly in his dialogue. Both the writing and the delivery were stellar.
Suit yourself. More for me.
The doctor reveals to Puss that he died. Puss is then like, bro, I've got 9 lives, I'm chillin'. The doctor asks how many times he's died already, and then we get a very funny montage of different deaths Puss had. One from a funny cannon launch, one from getting annihilated by dogs from a poker game, one from getting drunk and falling off a building, one from not wanting a spotter, never ego lift guys, one from a bull, one from setting the oven too high, hey Gingy, one from eating shellfish with an allergy, and now the fight with the giant. He is down to his last life, as he has died 8 times already. The doctor tells him he needs to retire, as his adventures are too dangerous for him with only 1 life left. I just love Puss's expression here, as well as Banderas' delivery when he's asked if there's anyone he can rely on.
I am Puss in Boots, loved by one and all. How could I possibly choose?
It's a really sad line given how lonely Puss must be at this point. He's got no Shrek or Donkey, no Humpty or Kitty, no one. The doctor gives Puss the address to Mama Luna, a cat fancier, as he will be safe there. Puss is offended at the thought of being a lap cat, and he scolds the doctor before leaving. And as if this doctor wasn't already S tier, he delivers my favorite line in the entire movie.
Death comes for us all.
It's such a good foreshadowing of what's gonna come next, and it's so funny because right after that, he just lifts up the cookie jar and goes, "Treat?" And oh my god, it's so good. It's so good! Sorry, moving on.
Treat?
Puss is now at the bar drinking leche and venting to the bartender like every guy has at one point or another. I've actually never done this, but for the sake of the joke, I'm gonna say that I have. Just the thought of retiring disgusts him as he proudly comes to the conclusion that he is too good looking to retire. Okay, let's talk about the wolf in the room. This character is pretty cool. I like his design, you know? I like the red eyes, makes him pretty menacing, I suppose, because they contrast with the dead colors of the rest of his body. The black poncho is really creepy. Wagner Moura's performance is really good. Yeah, that's about it. Jokes aside, I had a very hard time putting my thoughts into words here. Whenever this character is on screen, I get a bit of sensory overload as I can no longer process much. My bandwidth is taken over by this wolf. He starts off by just seeming like a creepy fan, or stan, of Puss, and just kind of a nuisance. Puss is understandably pretty uneasy about the sudden appearance of a canine 5 times his size, so he doesn't say much. The wolf then brings up a wanted poster of the cat and tells him to sign it. The intention is more clear now. He's a bounty hunter. Totally. Okay, knowing what we know about this character later on in the film, this dialogue is much more clever upon a second viewing.
Everyone thinks they'll be the one to defeat me, but no one's escaped me yet.
I like his expression of thought in those last few words. In the world of magic and fairy tales, you'd expect at least one deity that would be able to, but apparently not. It's also just really funny how Puss treats this like he's in a spaghetti western, being as dramatic and flamboyant as possible, and this man is just completely unimpressed.
Puss in Boots laughs in the face of death.
So I've heard.
You can imagine he's heard that a million times from past, victims. Also, there's something about this shot here that I just love. Can't really put my finger on it, but I can put it in the thumbnail. Puss is now tired of this cringe bounty hunter, so he decides to spar. The frames drop, the music blares, and Puss gets his ass kicked. I rewatched this fight a lot, and I'd even go as far to say it's probably the second best fight in the whole movie. The setting of the empty bar gives it a pretty dark tone which complements the wolf's own darkness. Puss even does his little spinny thing, only for the wolf to catch him nonchalantly and smash him into the bar. It's an amazing sequence. Just look at the split-second frames when their blades collide. That makes it look like a comic book. The cat that has apparently never been touched by a blade was touched by a blade, non-consensually. This shot is probably my favorite in the entire movie. It captures the wolf's nature perfectly, and Puss's fear is on full display. Touching the drop of blood dripping from his head— wait, blood? They're showing blood in a family movie in 2022? This freaking wolf means business. Puss's hair stands on end in terror as his lives literally flash before his eyes. We even get a dolly zoom in an animated film. It could not be more clear that he is afraid to die. Hey Shrek.
I just love the smell of fear.
Beautiful delivery from Senor Mora. Mwah. The speakers fill with a quick heartbeat as this terrifying wolf kicks Puss's sword towards him and simply says, "Pick it up." I'll get more into what this means later, but spoiler alert, Puss doesn't pick it up. He's scared shitless and understandably gets the hell out of there. The wolf simply licks his chops and taunts him with that eerie whistling he was introduced with. Like me in high school during SATs, Puss tries to hide in the bathroom, only for the wolf to break in. As the door slowly swings open, Puss is revealed to be gone.
Corre, corre, gatito.
You can translate that yourself, I'm not your mom. I have never seen a DreamWorks villain entrance so menacing, so terrifying, and so elegant since Tai Lung.
Oh no!
Not even Lord Shen had this impressive of an entrance, and he's my favorite DreamWorks villain. Puss could not have been humbled any further. This freaking wolf comes out of nowhere and makes the fearless hero shit himself in terror and literally crawl through a toilet to get away. He has been knocked off his high horse in the most brutal fashion possible, and he's lucky no one else was at that bar to witness the legend lose to some bounty hunter. Nudge nudge, wink wink. Up next is a pretty melancholy scene of Puss marching through the woods, running away to something as the first non-diegetic lyrical song plays. It's a nice piece. This scene reminds me heavily of those scenes in Shrek films, usually occurring right before the climax where, to quote Shafrilla's Productions, there's a super sad song because Shrek is alone and about to lose all the good things in his life. And that's essentially what's happening here. The legend of Puss in Boots is no longer this untouchable force of nature. He's flesh and bone, just like the rest of us, with death slowly but surely creeping up on him. More so than you would think. Puss is now headed for Mama Luna, the cat fancier the doctor recommended. Just one scene ago, he couldn't even entertain the thought of retiring, but here, he's going out in the most pathetic way possible. No swan song, no final battle, no fiesta. Stripping down, he declares that he is no longer worthy of being the legend he once was, and so, he decides to bury it. He attempts to give himself a proper funeral, but fails, and in my opinion, so does this scene. I mentioned this in my last video on this film, but the attempt at humor just kind of falls flat for me. Puss is sad, true, and it's a sad situation, but the way this is played for laughs just doesn't suit the scene for me, especially after the more melancholy tone of the travel sequence. Don't get me wrong, it's not really bad, it just doesn't do it for me. I don't think the joke lands. Burying his past self, he shows up to Mama Luna's doorstep and embraces being just a cat, immediately being integrated with her many, many cats. Mama Luna is a funny character, nowhere near as funny as the doctor, but she has her moments. This may just be the animal activist in me talking, and I'm sorry for even mentioning this in such a lighthearted movie, but I have to say what rubs me the wrong way about Mama Luna is that keeping this many cats is hoarding. They are not cared for right. It is neglect. Any ordinary person with this many cats is neglecting them, but it's played off as her just being this goofy old lady, which she is, but I just wish the movie gave us something to let people know that this is bad. And yes, it shows us that it's bad for Puss, but it doesn't go out of its way to call her out or show how neglected any of these cats are. They're just shown to be living a boring, mundane life, which people tend to think is fine for a cat. It ain't. And the only reason I'm even mentioning this is because far too many people do this in the real world all the time. With that out of the way, I can get to the following montage of Puss's new life, or should I say, Pickles' new life. I really like the cover of the inn that plays. It fits the tone of the scene well. During this montage, we see Puss lose even more dignity than in the previous scene. He's not allowed to cook a proper meal, not allowed to sleep in comfort, not even allowed to piss in privacy. This is what a life of no adventure and no risk gets you. Purgatory. And Puss embraces it. It's even more pathetic than him running away from the wolf from the last scene. Though, is it really any different? Our next scene features a new set of characters, and aside from the wolf, they are my favorite in the entire movie. We see 3 bears and a blonde girl in the dark, stalking in the shadows for Puss in Boots. As the blonde girl studies the tracks before her, it is made clear just who they are, if it wasn't already.
These ones are just right.
Goldilocks and the 3 bears. And before some of you mention this, I am well aware they existed in the original Shrek as something completely different, but like Shut up. The first Shrek film had them as just a random background joke that served absolutely nothing to the story and wasn't very creative in all honesty. Especially not compared to this beauty. It's called a retcon. It's a good thing if it's actually done right. I'll be discussing a similar situation later on. It's funny how serious and spooky this introduction is considering what we know about them down the line. But for now, I'll say they are all perfectly designed as the crime syndicate family they're trying to be. They all look great. It's been a long while since Puss first arrived at Mama Luna's place. He has a disgusting beard with crumbs of his stale cat food stuck in it. What was once our favorite fearless hero is now just an old hermit sulking in his own filth. It is here where we are introduced to yet another character of our main cast.
You're a talking cat? I'm a talking cat.
Let's talk!
This is Perrito. He's a chihuahua living amongst Mama Luna's cats disguised as a cat. He hasn't got anywhere else to go, so here he is. He's really interested in Puss, following him around and talking with him with some fun back and forth, while Puss is completely unenthused and just wants to be left alone. For those who have seen the first Shrek film, does this seem familiar to you? Perrito seems like the modern day equivalent to Donkey. Even their names are both just what they are. Donkey was a subversion of marketable animal characters from older Disney films. And while he has no shortage of marketability nowadays, back then it must have made the producers squirm with anxiety if the movie flopped. But more importantly, while the talking animal characters of Disney Renaissance movies were mostly just one-note side characters with little purpose other than comic relief, Donkey was tied into the main story quite well. The movie quite literally would not have worked without him. He was Shrek's best friend, and he helped him see the world in a new light, whilst also helping him win over Fiona and kill James Charles. It all started with Donkey just not being bothered by him. This scene, and Perrito in general, feels like a love letter to that dynamic. While yes, he's cute and marketable, he's still a homeless, dirty chihuahua, a dog breed with one of the worst reputations, aside from the toddler eaters. Just like Donkey, he manages to tie into the story in a way that most comic relief characters just don't. And just like Donkey and Shrek, these two characters play off of each other in really entertaining ways. When Puss gets all dramatic about his past, Perrito's expression plays into it. It's also a funny segue into this joke.
Wanna rub my belly?
Hard, Buzz.
I'm gonna be a therapy dog someday.
What the hell are you talking about?
Which is not only very funny, but also a good setup for later in the movie. We get the same old sad music and same old depressed Puss, but he sees something in the window. A silhouette of a large predator, and a nose sniffing about.
The wolf, he found me.
And then... this is our proper introduction to Goldie and the bears. While the last scene with them had the bears look inanimate and just kind of pets for Goldie to order around, here it is revealed that they can talk. And thank the heavens for that. Almost everything they say is pure gold, and there's more to them than just a comedic standpoint, but we'll get there. Mama Bear is a sweetheart in a criminal bear's body. She loves her family and Goldie, and that is her main priority. A lot of her comedy comes from how sweet she is. She accepts Goldie as part of the family. Papa Bear is an unenergetic old man that also doesn't seem too enthused about the crime life, as he's a simple bear that just wants to hibernate. And it seems he's only in this biz for the sake of being able to hibernate. He's old-fashioned, and the few lines he gets are really funny. But he also embraces Goldie as one of his own. Baby Bear is a big goofball. While he takes the criminal lifestyle more seriously than his parents, he doesn't necessarily have the mojo for it, though he does have a very acute sense of smell that kind of carries the whole team. He's treated as a bit of a punching bag by Papa, and especially Goldie as a bit of a sibling rivalry, but unlike his parents, he does not see the blonde as part of his family. Finally, Goldie is a little trickster. She's likely the reason they became a crime family to begin with. She's athletic and quick-witted. I really like this interpretation of her. It's a great subversion of the source material, as she's usually depicted as this innocent and naive little girl. Here, she's a hardened thief. It's good stuff. So Goldie and co. interrogate Mama Luna for Puss, as they have an offer for him. Luna doesn't budge, and then hijinks ensues. This scene is so endearing to watch, from Papa's talented piano playing to Mama trying on one of Luna's hats. It all emphasizes how much I like these guys. Baby smells Puss's scent in the grave, and they come to the conclusion he's dead, which was clever. Puss overhears their expository conversation regarding stealing the map to the wishing star, and figures out he could use the wish to get his 9 lives back. To critique the writing a little bit, so little to the point where you could honestly consider this a nitpick, if the wish could get you anything you want, why stop at 9? Like, it's obvious Puss is terrified of death. He wants to keep his lives because there will always be another one he can fall back on if he dies. That was what made the legend possible. as his recklessness would always go unpunished up until this point. It fits into the story really well and would play into just how uncertain of himself he is. It would also make a certain character much more pissed off at him. I don't really care, as everything plays out the same in the plot regardless of this change, so it's not all that important. It's explained the map is in the hands of Big Jack Horner, to which Puss says this line that had me laughing harder than I probably should have.
No, not Jack Horner.
Yes, yet another character. Can we just take a second to applaud how effectively this movie juggles so many different characters without it affecting the pacing in the slightest? I mean, the movie's not even that long. It could have just done what Marvel or Star Wars or Godzilla King of the Monsters or Jurassic World did and just advertise it as this big finale, thus justifying an absurdly long runtime with all these new characters. But this movie's only like an hour and a half. Movies tend to do this regardless if it's a finale at all. We know Avengers Endgame sure as hell wasn't much of an endgame. All of it feels contained and resolved quite nicely by the end. And speaking of over hour-long runtimes, this essay is a long one. So long to the point where editing thus far gave me severe burnout on top of all the other projects I had to manage. Like this. You notice the basement's almost done? Regardless, this is a part 1, but parts 2 and 3 and possibly 4 are inevitable. It is at this point where I'd like to thank you for watching and sticking with me. Please leave a like and subscribe. I'm not even asking anymore, do it right now. I ain't gonna waste your time any further. Have a good night, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
One day you want